Welcome to HortTube, where we talk all things gardening. My name is Jim Putnam, and this is a Swift Creek Privet. This is Swift Creek Privet, a newer introduction of variegated privet that doesn't reach 25 feet tall like the old ones did. It can be maintained as a foundation plant or a low border plant. Has this beautiful variegated yellow and green foliage year-round. Swift Creek Privet can be maintained between 4 feet tall and 6 feet tall and 4 to 6 feet wide as well. It's a perfect little mounding, round, evergreen variegated shrub with a great color. It would probably end up reaching 8, 9 feet if just left to its own time. It would just add a little bit each year. It's nothing like the old variegated privet that grew 2 and 3 feet a year. A lot of times it's hard to sell this plant to anybody who's had variegated privet in the past that got 25 feet tall and seemed like they had to prune them all summer. But this plant is very, very different. Swift Creek is a dwarf variegated privet. Swift Creek privet grows much slower than the old variegated privet. We might get between 6 inches and a foot of growth out of these a year. If they were fertilized twice, maybe we would get over a foot, but really nowhere near the growth rate of the old ones, and much, much easier to maintain because of it. All privet can grow in the sun or the shade, but in the full sun is where you're going to get the best color and the fullest plant. In the shade, this plant will stretch out and be much thinner, but it will work. It actually will grow in the shade. You'll have to do a little more pruning on it to keep it full. Swift Creek Privet has a lot of different usage. It could be used as a border plant between you and a neighbor and left to get 8 feet tall. It would be a great screening plant if you didn't need a screening plant that got 20 feet tall. It could be kept 6 feet along a border and be really full, dense, all the way to the ground. It could also go on a foundation. If your windows are up higher, this plant will be a good idea if you have 6 foot high windows, or it can be used on a corner. It looks great against other dark green foliage. It really makes this variegation stand out more to put it with something that's also, really, really dark green or shiny green foliage. Swift Creek Privet gets a small cluster of white flowers in the spring. Honestly, it's kind of, it doesn't really show up against this variegated foliage very well, and it's really kind of insignificant to the value of this plant. The foliage year round is really the value of this plant. Not a lot of special planting considerations when planting variegated privet or anything in the ligustrum family. They're all very, very low maintenance, really. I always leave everything elevated a little bit above the existing soil grade. So you're digging your hole, the depth of this soil, and then you're adding a little bit of loose soil to the bottom of it. So when you set the plant in the hole, it's actually sticking up a little bit. And then we'll pull the soil up to the edge of that and then lightly mulch. Don't cover anything that's not covered. Privet are pretty aggressive rooting in the container, and frequently you're going to get roots that are spiraled around and kind of root bound. Doesn't scare me on a privet, it's just normal. You're not going to buy one that doesn't have this matted roots in the pot. You can just go in here and pull at this a little bit and get rid of some of that, where it's wrapping around, just by pulling like this. If it's really, really bad, you can take a knife and maybe in 3 different spots, just make a shallow cut into the roots like that, and that'll get the roots going outward and stop wrapping around one another. In terms of watering any privet or ligustrum, they're extremely drought tolerant and probably could lose every leaf off of this plant in a drought and then get rain and leaf right back out. They're that drought tolerant. But if the best foliage on these is in this new growth, and if you want to keep that new growth during the summer, if it gets abnormally dry, you may want to drag a water hose to it and give it some additional water to keep it growing like this and to keep the best color all summer long. Again, the best foliage on these Swift Creek privets is the new foliage. The top 6 or 8 inches has the best color contrast. And in order to keep that, we'd also want to fertilize them in the spring. Any slow release fertilizer that's available wherever you shop, it's an outdoor fertilizer, is perfect for these. Swift Creek privet can be pruned whenever you need to. I usually don't do a lot of heavy pruning in the middle fall just because it's not going to grow back and it's going to look, however you make it look at that time, it's going to look like that all the way until the spring. So typically I'd wait until mid to late spring after they flower and then cut them pretty hard if you need to cut them, and so that you give them time to come back out and have this kind of free-flowing look that they're supposed to have. You wouldn't want to take a little bit every time, because then you'd be constantly pruning it and keeping it in a really tight ball, where I think the look of this, where it's just kind of free-flowing, looks a lot better. It moves around in the breeze. And so if you have to prune it hard, and then let it come back out and take this natural look. No real insect or disease problems on Swift Creek Privet, or really any privet for that matter. We just don't really see that many things. Occasionally you'll see leaves getting chewed on. Deer will aggressively eat these certain times of the year, especially when the new growth is on them in the late spring. So if you have deer problems, this may not be the best plant for you. So what are you waiting for? Even you can grow these low maintenance variegated Swift Creek Privet. Thank you for watching, and if this video was helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for future videos. Also comment below with any questions you have about these privet or any kind of ligustrum, and I'll try to answer your questions. Thank you for watching. Go on. These could be, okay, watch out, girl.